Welcome to the Perky-Pet Seasonal Prepping Podcast Series. I'm Susan Matson, and on behalf of Perky-Pet, I'd like to introduce Jeffrey A. Gordon, President of the American Birding Association. Jeff will be joining us each step of the way as we talk about year-round bird watching and what we can do to keep our visiting friends safe, happy, and healthy. During this three-part series, we will review yard maintenance and provide seasonal tips on food, water, and shelter. Hi, Jeff. Welcome to the show.
Hey, Susan. Thanks.
Thank you. So, Jeff, spring cleaning. My to-do list says I got to deal with my house, but that's not the only thing we need to deal with, do we?
No, definitely not. One thing that you want to be sure of as you're getting ready to hang your bird feeders, or especially if you have bird feeders up from last year, you want to make sure and remove any old nests that may be in there. And you also want to be very careful about keeping your bird feeders clean as well.
So what do we want to do, Jeff, when we talk about cleaning those feeders? So what are those tips?
You want to make sure with seed feeders, and probably especially with Niger or thistle feeders, that you clean them out. You make sure the seed is not caking up or clumping. And, every month and a half, something like that, or if they look like they need it more often, it's a good idea to empty them out and, dip them in a bleach solution and let them dry thoroughly before filling them again. You can, if the hulls accumulate or the seed starts to spoil a little bit, it is possible to spread disease. So that's something to definitely watch out for.
Good to know. Good to know. How about hummingbird feeders, putting those out? What should we be doing to make sure that they're good for the hummingbirds and keeping them healthy and not, spreading anything?
Well, hummingbird feeders, I think, need a little bit of special attention. And depending on what climate you're in, whether you're in a really humid, warm climate or a dry, cold climate, just like, a drink that you would have, things will spoil faster under certain conditions. So I would say in any case, once a week is a really good idea for cleaning. And sometimes in places, especially if you ever notice little black spots of mold in the solution or on the edge of the feeder, just take it down and clean it out. You really do want to be careful that the food you're providing hummingbirds is clean.
And for those of you listening, if you need help with preventing that mold and the residue buildup, you might want to think about getting one of the foam feeder cleaning mops that Perky-Pet has. So let's move on for a second and let's talk about the types of food. Do we have to be concerned with the food option for birds? Well,
a lot of people think of bird feeding as being primarily a cold weather activity, but it's really something that birds will take advantage of. Birds are opportunistic, and if you provide them an attractive food source, they'll use it. And actually, especially in that early spring, sometimes the seed and wild fruit crop, especially if it wasn't very good that year, can be getting kind of depleted, and the insects and sort of the warm weather foods haven't really ramped up yet, and it can be a great time to keep sunflower seeds and stuff out. You might really luck out and get like a returning rose-breasted grosbeak or indigo bunting, some really flashy, colorful bird like that has come back sort of early. There's not a lot for it to eat, and your feeders will really be a welcome refueling station. But I'm just a fan of feeding year-round. I keep my bird feeders up year-round, and I really do think of it as an all-season thing to do.
Oh, that's good to know. And when you say bird feeders, do you have a type of bird feeder that you like, or is there options that we should be looking at if we want to bring certain types of birds to our backyard?
Well, there's just about as many types as there are flowers that you might plant in your yard. You got everything from a fairly utilitarian kind of tube feeder to, more decorative sorts of things. And there's, hopper feeders. There's, depending on where you can safely put a feeder, you may want to hang it from a tree. You may want to mount it from a pole. You might be interested in a window-mounted feeder, which can be really fun. Can bring the birds right up next to your house or apartment so you can see them just inches away, which is really exciting. There's just, a wide variety of different feeder types, and they all work, and part of the fun is experimenting and seeing what works best for your birds in your yard.
What about if some of our audience wants to buy a new feeder they want to add to their feeders this season? What kind of types should they be looking at?
If Space is at a premium, definitely, and I think it can probably be a little less expensive to buy a multi-seed feeder than to buy, a different one for each type. So that'll definitely, and you'll get a real side-by-side comparison of what's popular and which species are coming to which.
Wonderful. And how about the hummingbird? Obviously, they're not seed. They're more interested in nectar. In the springtime, they're migrating north, so they must be pretty hungry.
Absolutely, and nectar is a huge part of their diet. I know Perky-Pet makes a hummingbird solution, which is really easy. That'll keep them happy and interested. You might even get to watch some courtship behavior early in the season, which is really fun.
Spring. Love is in the air, huh?
Yeah. Although, let me tell you, hummingbirds don't make the best husbands. Male hummingbirds are sort of, you get the song and dance, and that's about it. The females do just about all the work in hummingbird breeding.
Okay, moving on to water. So what do we think about water? I mean, it's spring, so we don't have to worry about extreme temperatures. Does that mean anything? Is water still that important?
Really, if you think of three basic things you want to provide in your yard for birds and wildlife, it's food, water, and shelter. And water's probably the most often overlooked of those. One thing you'll find, birds love to bathe, and they need to because they need to keep their feathers clean and in good condition so that they keep insulated. And one of the things that's really tricky for birds is finding a safe place to bathe. If they go to a stream or a pond, they could get eaten by a fish or even sometimes a big bullfrog or something like that. So they're always kind of nervous and apprehensive about approaching a new bathing site. And if you give them a place that's really safe and secure, and I know Perky-Pet does have a couple of these hanging waterers.
Oh, yes.
And I think, it's really cool when birds find a source of water that's up in a tree. They often feel a lot more confident about that. Like if you sometimes we'll see them in knot holes and stuff in trees bathing. So, a hanging water source can kind of mimic that.
Jeff, I really like Perky-Pet's Sip and Seed feeder line. And the nice thing about that is that they've got such flexibility. You can have two types of seed, you can have seed and water, or you can have the two vessels carrying both water, which is great because you can have the birds that may have never come because you didn't have water in the past are now coming because of the water being available to them.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. You may get birds showing up for water that just aren't interested in seed at all, because everything needs to drink.
Absolutely. So, spring has sprung, but we're going to quickly be fast approaching the summertime. You got any final thoughts?
Well, don't take your feeders in. If you do, you may miss out on some really cool stuff like parent birds bringing their young fledglings in to kind of show them the ropes. And again, that water, as the temperatures get higher and a lot of areas get drier, water becomes really important. So, and hummingbirds in many areas are all summer long. So if you're up for it, they're up for it.
Oh, that's great. Well, you know what? Thank you so much, Jeff, for joining us today. And for more information about bird watching or to learn about the Perky-Pet product mentioned today, please visit www.birdfeeders.com. To learn more about the American Birding Association, please visit www.aba.org or find them on Facebook at facebook.com/birders. Thanks for listening, and watch for more announcements on our next conversation with Jeff when we'll be discussing fall prepping. Until then, happy birding.